take off. Okay. Are we live? Should I start talking?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're live now.
Am I live? Hi, can people see me and hear me? Good morning. Hello. Oh no. Hi everyone. Are people tuning in? Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay. So, hi. Good morning. I look like a pilot today. My fancy earphones and microphone. But hopefully you guys will hear me a little bit better. We'll just wait a little bit so that everyone who wants to tune in can sign on. Okay. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Hi, good afternoon. Let's see. Good evening. Hi, guys. Oh, this is fun. This is my first Facebook Live, so please excuse me if I'm awkward. But yeah, we'll wait a couple, maybe another minute, I guess. Yeah. So, hi, everybody. I'm Jenny Sue. I'm going to be leading this workshop, session 4, on metadata, file management, and archiving. So let's see. I guess I can say a little bit about myself while everyone is tuning in. I am a PhD student here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I've been here in Hawaii for about 2 years now. I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, though, so I'm a long way from home. And my focus in this program is on language documentation and conservation. And I'm actually trying to do a little bit more emphasis on new models of revitalization. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, hey, I see more people tuning in. Hello. Hello. Hi. Oh, Anna's here. Hello. Okay, so I think we can start. We have we have some people here, and then I'm sure some more people will join in as we go. So thanks for coming. Again, welcome to workshop session 4, metadata, file management, and archiving. My name is Jenny Sue, and I'll be leading this workshop. Hi guys. Okay, I'm a little nervous. Okay, but we'll start. Let's see. I'm going to already preface this workshop with, this is probably not the funnest workshop because it's about file management, right? And it's not about like recording or cool linguistic stuff like orthography. So I'm going to try to make it as fun as possible. Okay. Let's see. Let's start. Okay. And you'll see here, there's a picture. Maybe some of you will recognize it. This was taken, I believe, in September of 2018, so just a few months ago. It's a picture of the National Museum of Brazil, and it's burning down. Yeah, that was too bad. So it was a museum, and there were a lot of priceless artifacts in this museum. And besides artifacts, they actually had like numerous amounts of recordings, language recordings of indigenous languages of Brazil. And if you click on this link down here, You can read about it, but in it, it says that they don't know if the recordings were digitized or not. And that's a big shame if all of those languages and those recordings were lost, because some of them were no longer spoken anymore. So this is kind of to show you how important file management and also archiving are, because now for best practice, we archive our data, our digital data. And back in the day, you know, it was on cassette tapes and like rolls of film and things like that. And that's why a physical copy was in this museum of Brazil. But then what we do now is we have everything digital. And so this should be actually one of your main goals of language documentation projects, is to successfully archive your work. Okay, so that's the first thing we're talking about here. So maybe you ask yourself, so what exactly is a language archive? So it's a place to digitally store valuable language data, meaning an organization will maintain it forever, and not just a physical copy. And we want the recordings to last as long as possible so that people in the future will be able to use them as well. Oh, by the way, if I'm talking too fast, just let me know, and hopefully, yeah, I can slow down. So yeah, so we want our recordings to last well into the future. And just so you know, that each archive will actually need metadata. We talked about that a little bit last week. And each archive also has their own correct file naming conventions. And those instructions will be on those archives web pages on how to do it. So you know that, yeah, every archive has its own way of doing things. In the world, as far as I know, there are over 60 archives, and I have some links here for you guys to check out after this this session. And just like, I really encourage you to browse through them and just take a look at the different archives, and maybe one will suit you, because a lot of them end up being kind of regional based, right? So here are some examples. The first one is the Pacific and Regional Archive for Digital Sources in Endangered Cultures. And a lot of times, language archives will have really long names, and then we just condense it to an acronym. So the first one we just called Paradisic. They are based in Australia. They have a lot of Australian Indigenous languages in it, but they'll also take a lot of Pacific languages, Southeast Asian languages, so a little bit of a lot of things in that area. Let's see, okay. We also have the Archive of the Indigenous Languages of Latin America, and they obviously focus on Latin American languages. Alaska Native Language Archive for Alaskan languages. Another one is the Endangered Languages Archive in the UK at SOAS, and they take everything, actually a little of everything. They don't specify what region they're in or anything like that. And here at the University of Hawaii, we have Kaipu Leahone. We call it Kaipu for short. And even though we're in the Pacific, we do take Pacific languages. Kaipu also takes languages from all over. So again, I really encourage you all, before you really start your language documentation projects, is to research what archive you think would be a good fit for your language, and start communicating with them. Okay, and also figure out what kind of, like I said, instructions or methods they have for archiving, because a lot of times they will have certain metadata that they'll need, or file naming convention, and then you'll need to follow that in order to archive it properly. So what that means is that you don't want to start your project and start naming things and doing things a certain way. And then at the end, when you're ready to archive, you find out that the archive needs everything a different way from how you've been doing it, right? So this is why it's best to know what kind of things the archive expects in the beginning and try to do as much as that throughout your process. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and it'll take a lot of time to redo things, right? So yeah, definitely take some time and find an archive and start communications with them if needed, right? And also, just so you know that archives, they won't necessarily just take one recording, right? So they like to have a robust, like robust recordings, like so a little bit of a lot of things, you know. So after like we're doing these sessions with us and maybe you make one recording, that probably won't be enough to just put in one archive. Okay, but for longer term projects, and maybe some of you really will get into language documentation and do a lot more things, yeah, collect a lot of recordings and then you can archive. Okay, if you have questions about that, you can comment on our feed and hopefully I can get back to you shortly or later on. Let's see, any questions? Oh yeah, Anna mentioned the Archive of Languages and Oral Resources of Africa. Yeah, there's like so many. So yeah, I'd say just keep looking and definitely find one that fits your language, possibly your region, or you know, maybe the type of people you want to reach. Because these archives in the future, people can go into them and find these recordings, and this is what it's about, right? You don't want to, like at the museum example, you don't want to have just these reels of recordings sitting somewhere. And even with your digital stuff, you don't want them just sitting on your computer because no one will have access to them, right? It's really no good then if it's just sitting somewhere. So this is why we want to archive our materials for future generations, for other people that want to possibly study the language, and you know, possibly people that might end up revitalizing a language in the future. And that has been done in the past. Okay, so let's continue on. We're going to take a step back out now, and we're going to look at data. Okay, what is data management? Data management is how to organize your work in a more comprehensive and easier to understand way. And this is done through folders, file naming, and metadata on your computer. And every day you should spend some time before and after your recordings to take care of your data. So really it's about organization and being more detailed, right? And why is it important, right? All of your data is valuable and needs to be carefully labeled so that anyone who sees the data now or in the future understands the basic concepts of that data. So just an example is, I'm sure we all take selfies and pictures on our phone, right? I know I do, and I can tell you I do not organize my photos. I don't put them in folders. I don't say, oh, this was, you know, this person's birthday, this person's wedding, things like that. You know, they're kind of just sitting on my phone, not so organized, right? And we don't want to treat our recorded language data like that. We actually want to treat them as assets and really put time into organizing them. So I hope you understand that. Oh, yes. And definitely don't overestimate yourself when it comes to metadata. You can't rely on your memory to remember things that happened last week or a week ago or even today. So make sure you really write down all the information as soon as possible. Last week, I know you guys talked about metadata and making sure you say those important things like who's in the video, what you're talking about, what language you're recording, who else is like around and during the session. You say all those things during your recording, but make sure you write all that stuff down too, because that's very important to have, as well as, anything else that might come up during the session, like someone else walks in, or maybe you plan on recording a SWOTish list, but then in the middle they start talking about a story, right? So you want to make sure all of that kind of information is written down. Data management is most definitely one of the most important tasks of your language documentation process, okay? So remember, just write everything down and keep that in a safe place. And now we're gonna go to a little pop quiz. And this is actually just to test your memory. Hopefully some of you were logged in at the very beginning of this session. And I told you a few things about myself. Where did I grow up? So comment in the live feed, because I want to know if you guys remember. Where did I grow up? Another question is, how long have I been living in Hawaii? And another question is, can you name all of the workshop presenters from the last 3 weeks? I don't know, maybe some of you wrote these things down, maybe not. So let's see. Let's see. I see a shout out, Minnesota, yes. Circle of Indigenous Peoples. Yes, that is correct. I am from Minnesota. Let's see, anybody else? Does anybody know how long I've been living in Hawaii? Or any of the workshop presenter names, like just off of the top of your head? I don't know. I'm not seeing anything. I don't know if that's the lag in the feed, or no one knows. So this was just a little pop quiz to show you that if you don't write down information, you won't remember, right? A few years. Yeah, I've been living in Hawaii for 2 years. So exactly, right? You hear something and maybe you're like, oh yeah, I know it. But without writing it down, you won't remember. So this is why metadata and organization of your data during language documentation is so extremely important. Okay. Oh, Anna. Anna knows that I moved here in 2017 because I purchased all of her things. Okay. Good. Yeah, Anna, Kevin, and Jacob. Yeah, okay. So some people are on top of it, but this is definitely the point, yeah, to write down all of that information. Okay, let's go on. Talking about more data. So I feel like one good way of talking about data during language documentation is to kind of divide it into 3 stages. And I have an analogy here with coffee. So your raw data is like coffee beans. You pick them, right? Like you make your recordings, and but you can't really enjoy them yet, right? That's your raw data. After you pick it, what you have to do is you have to do things like dry them, roast them, grind them down, right? And that is a process. And that is also like our process data. Things like trimming down your recordings, transcribing, doing translation, that is all a part of the processing of your data. And then at the end, people can finally enjoy the coffee, right? In its final form. And that's like your archive data. That's the final stage when people can enjoy and understand what kind of work you've done and the data. Okay, so those are your 3 stages of data. Okay. I hope that is understandable. If anybody has questions, just ask. Okay. So we're going to go on to file naming now, which is a very essential part of data, data management. And first I need to talk about ISO codes. So first, a file naming convention is the consistent use of a style to name your files. Okay, and first we have to talk about ISO codes, because that's a 3-letter language identifier, and it serves as a way to search for your language in databases, basically. And it's important to use ISO codes because some languages may have the same name, right? So maybe like a language in Africa has the same name as a language in Mexico, right? And what will distinguish it is this 3-letter ISO code. Oh, actually, I think people call it ISO. Is that right? ISO? ISO code or ISO, whatever. And so you need a way to distinguish those languages. And even, excuse me, within a language, you might have different dialects. I know the language of the Philippines, Bicol, for example, it has several different dialects. And so each of those dialects actually has a different ISO code. Sometimes, not all languages, you'll find one, and then we will deal with that later. So one task for you guys is actually to find your language ISO code. And you can click on this link here, www.ethnologue.com, to find your ISO code. And I will go to it right now, and oops, and I'll go through an example. So I just talked about Bicol, right? So this is ethnologue.com, and then up in this bar right here, you can type your language in, and I'm going to type in Bicol. And as you can see, there are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that come up for this language, but I believe only 5 of them are like unique codes. So you'll see that there's so many, right? And this is why we have the codes. So just click on one, Bicol Riconada, and yeah, you'll see right here is where you'll have your ISO code. And so for this language, it's BTO, right? And just so you know, Ethnologue is kind of a cool website where you can find information on languages. So right here, you can also see it gives you information about alternative names, population, location, things like that. So you can check out this webpage about your language or other languages that you're interested in. But definitely this is a task for you, is to look up your language's ISO code. Let's see, oh, that's not right. Let's see here. Okay. If for some reason you cannot get to the website, I actually went ahead and made a list of the languages that participants said that they speak that are in our workshop. And you can click on this link here, and there'll be your code. So you can always use it for cross-referencing, or if for some reason you can't, like I said, can't get on the website, you can look at that. Now, just so you know, again, not every language has a code. And there are different reasons for this that I won't get into. But if you're having issues finding your code, let us know in the comments, and we'll try to help you either figure one out or you know, do what we need to do to help you find your code. But I think most of them were available, and you should be able to find it. Okay. So yeah, that's really important. The codes are really important for file naming. And this is, again, when you eventually archive all your data, your file name will have this code in it, and then the archives and people will know what language you're talking about, right? Okay, so we're at stage 1 of data, the raw data, right? And raw data, again, is data that has not been changed. It's data that you just filmed it and you just have it right away, right? You haven't edited it or anything. So what you want to do with your raw data is you want to give it a new file name. And just so you know, in this workshop, I'm going to tell you how to do the file names and archive through Kaipuleohone, the archive we have here in Hawaii. So these are our naming conventions and standards. It's not necessarily one of the other archives. So I'm just telling you one method, okay? And for the purposes of this workshop, follow this method just for practice, okay? This is only for practice. And then when you really do continue your language documentation projects, you should figure out your archive and file name and do all that good stuff according to that archive. So here at LDTC, we have a specific file naming standard, okay? It is LDTC, and then the dash or the hyphen, and then you write your ISO code, and then another hyphen, and then this XY is actually, it should be a number. It's gonna be a number based on the recording session that you've done. So say that your first session is a recording of the word list, and that can be 01. And then say you recorded again the next day a story in the same language. That will be 02, and then so on and so forth. So 3, 04, 05, right? So depending on how many recordings you have. But each session has its own number, which goes in this XY spot. And then what's very important is that you add a -O at the end, and that stands for original. That means you know that's your raw data, that's your original data, and you shouldn't change it because that's your O file is your original, right? And so if anything gets messed up later on, you can always go back to your O file, and that'll be the raw data, okay? And then you can start over again, because you know sometimes things can get messed up or lost, and just making sure you have that that first initial file is very important, okay? And this is also why we say back up that raw data right away after you change your file name. Have it on your computer, and then best practice is to have an external hard drive and back it up on there, and that is your O file, that is your raw data. And then the last bit of your file name will be the extension, okay? And you do not need to change this. Whatever equipment you're using will automatically have this extension name on the file. Sometimes you won't even see it when you're looking at the file name, and that's okay. You just leave it be. So just don't change it, but just so you know, file names will be in the form of .wav or .mp4 or .eaf or .jpg, depending on what type of file it is. So just don't change that, let that be, but it's important that you know what type of file you have. Okay, I hope, am I talking okay? It's not too fast, right? Okay. Oh, cool. Okay, Siam, you say that your ISO code is SHY. Oh, SHY. Yes, very cool. Okay, yes. Circle of Indigenous Peoples say that external hard drive not kept at the museum, and that is very good. Yeah. We always say you back it up at least once, but you know, if you can back it up more times, it's not bad to back it up many times, because that is your main raw data. Yeah, to the cloud, anything, right? Okay, so that's the raw data. Let's keep going to the next stage of your data, your processed data. And processed data, again, is the minute you make any kind of changes to your raw data, okay? And I know last week, Jacob said you should trim your recordings to everything, like take out everything that was before the collapse and after the collapse. So that the minute you change your data, you have started processing it, okay? Also, using certain software to transcribe data, that is processing it. And best practice is to rename that file so that you know that's not your raw data, that's your processing data, right? So we have the same code here, right? Except what we do is we add a hyphen and working to it, right? So that's just helpful for you and anyone that you're working with to show that that file is in progress. You're doing stuff to it, you did stuff to it, that's not your raw one, something's happening to it, okay? So, so yeah, make sure you just label it, and that just tells everyone this one is being worked on, okay? And it's sometimes you work with multiple people on a file, and it's just good to know that that's the one that you all are working on. Okay, and now we have our last stage of data. It's the data for the archive. So what we do here for the, again, it's for the Kaipu archive, right? We will take out the O, but actually the O thing, you should do that for any kind of file name you have. Just add that O to the end and know that that's original. That's something you should always do. But when you archive it, you take out that O, you take out the working or whatever you wanted to label your working in progress data as, and your final file name will look something like this, right? LDTC, your ISO code, the number, and then the extension. And that is what you end up uploading at the end to the archive to be archived. An example here is Urhobo. I hope I'm saying that correctly. This is a language in Nigeria, and I saw that we have a few participants that speak this language. So the Urhobo ISO code is URH. So for example, your audio recording, you'll label it, you'll change the file name, and the archivable data, the last processed data at the very end, will be called LDTC -URH-01- or .wave, or whatever type of file it is. And if you have multiple WAV files, the next one will be O2, and then O3, O4, so on and so forth. If you have a video recording, it's going to be, and it's the same session. So this is really important because in best practice, a lot of times we end up having a video recorder going on at the same time as a audio recorder. Okay, so you have the audio file, which is a WAV, and a video file, which is an MP4, at the same time, at the same session. Okay, and sometimes maybe you'll even take pictures of that session, you know, to just like know what the setting looked like. So what happens then is that all of the files in the same session have the same number. That's this right here, right? But what will be different is the file extension, which again, you're not changing. That just comes how it is. But this is important because it's the same session, so keep it as the same number. They're different files, but it's going to be the same session. All right, so that's why here I have audio recording as a .wave and the video recording as a .mp4. And you know, if you transcribe or something in Elon, for example, you'll have a .eaf. Pictures will have the same file name, but then .jpg. Okay. I hope this isn't confusing. I think the more you practice this and do it, it gets easier. Because I can tell you, the first time I was doing it, I was like, what is going on here? You know, I mean, I thought I was computer savvy and everything, but then with the file names, I was like, what? And it really just takes some practice sometimes to understand, and just go slow and ask questions. You know, ask questions if you're not too sure. All right, okay. Now we're getting to the metadata sheet, and this sheet, most archives will have some sort of version of, because you need to give them information, some data about the data you're archiving. Okay, let's see. It puts the appropriate metadata of the recording in a context and eases access to recorded material. It provides information about the individual language clip and the situation. Okay, so for us using Kaipu as our archive, we have a sheet here all ready for you guys. Okay, so this is a part of the exercise for this week. Besides looking up an archive and looking up your ISO code, fill in the metadata sheet. And let me see, I will bring it up right here. And this is what it looks like. Whoops. Yeah, right here. Okay, so there is a link to this on the PowerPoint, and this will be in our Google Drive, right? So you can access it different ways. It looks a little intimidating at first because it's this huge Excel file with just rows and rows and rows of things. And to be honest, yeah, it looks a little scary at first, but once you fill things in after a while, it's very easy. Do not change anything that's on there right now. Just add to it. Okay, so you can add to it after the third row. Okay, this top row is it's what it needs to be in that. It's for that column, and it just kind of gives you instructions. But I have given you an example right here. Okay, so the first column is going to be your file name without the extension. Okay, and like previously, the example I used with Erhobo, we have LDTC-URH-01. Okay, so this is a file that you have uploaded to the Google Drive and you want to archive. But this is just practice, remember. So we won't necessarily be archiving anything. But really, like, it's really good practice for you guys just to do this. And filling in the metadata data sheet is very important. So that goes in the first column. We'll skip this one, B column for now, and continue on. Content language is the languages that are in the recording. Say if it was me doing the recording, I don't know the language, so I'll be speaking English in it, but the speaker is speaking Erhobo. So you'll list both of those languages in this column. You'll have both of their codes in this column in D. Subject language again is whatever you're recording. See, sometimes it's repetitive. F is the same thing. I won't go through all of the columns, but just the first few ones. G is any alternative names for that language, and it goes on and on. So just read each of the descriptions up here, and then fill it out. Let's see. We have a question from Circle of Indigenous Peoples. What if the same session we will have multiple audio devices and video device inputs? Oh, that is a great question. If you have multiple audio equipment, then let's see, what would you do? I think, is that when you put like A and B and stuff? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so yeah, so what you would do then is put a dash A or dash B or dash C after each one of the file names, and that will tell you each of the recordings. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, so yeah, that's a great question when you have multiple recorders, because you keep the session, the file name the same, but then that last letter will indicate what audio recorder it was. So it'll say it's a different audio recorder. That's a great question. Okay. Okay, I hope I'm not going too fast. Okay, so right, so you just fill this in. Contributor, depositor, that's your name. Contributor speaker is the speaker's name. if you have multiple participants, you can put that in contributor participant, and any other researchers that are with you, helping you, maybe behind the scenes, you can put in column M. Let's see. And as you can see here, there's a lot of empty things I didn't fill in because it's not necessarily needed. If you do have something you can fill in there, you can, but it's not necessarily needed. Yeah. The date. This is an important column. The linguistic type. So at Kaipu, we have 5 different types you can choose from for what type of material you're archiving. The options are lexicon, instrumental music, language description, primary text, and song. Okay, I think most of the time you'll be using primary text, like if you're recording stories or word lists, things like that, it will usually be a primary text. This column is also important because you are listing what different types of files you are uploading for that session. Okay, so like I said before, say you're using multiple equipment. You're using an audio recorder, different audio recorders, video camera, and you have pictures, right? They're all going to be under the same session file name. But then here in this column U, you will list out the different files you are uploading. Okay, so as you can see here, it says digital WAV file, and it's really good to write the speed it was recorded in and everything. And then and then it's separated by 2. I don't know what this is called. What is this called? We don't know what it's called, but it's like this is the separator. I think you can see that right here. So that separates each file and each name actually in the Excel file. But yeah, we have a WAV file, we have a video file, and then we have a JPEG file. So that's just an example for you, right? And then put the running time of the audio and video file here. Okay, so that's the example. Don't delete anything on here. Just leave it be and add your file names and metadata to the sheet. The sheet will be taken by the archive, and they will input all this information in that you wrote to go with the files that you uploaded. Okay, and this is going to all be searchable information then once it's uploaded to an archive. Okay, we'll go back to this column B right now because last week, I know Jacob said that if you want to have your video uploaded to our YouTube channel, then you can drop that in to our Google Drive. And if you want it, it's totally optional, but if you do want it, and that would be really cool, just give it a name and put it in this column B, and that will indicate to us that you want that file uploaded to YouTube. If you leave this space blank, that is totally okay. You can just practice uploading everything. We won't use the files. And we won't put it on if you leave it blank. But if you do, again, want it on YouTube, just give it a title, a name, and we will upload it under that title. Okay, and again, this can be a little confusing. Just ask questions anytime, and we will help work you through all of these steps. Okay. So let's see what else we have in our PowerPoint. Any more questions here? Okay, double pipe, maybe. This, we don't know. Maybe. Okay, thank you, Anna. Okay, so fill in the sheet. Yes, and optional if you want your YouTube video uploaded. But really, it's good practice to just, upload your data to our Google Drive, fill in the metadata sheet. Like I said, the more you do this, the more you practice, the better you're going to be at language documentation, right? The first few times, it's going to be a little confusing, a little bit like you're unsure of yourself, but just practice will help you along. We'll check your stuff. And yeah, we just want you guys to learn how to do this, you know, because as community members, you guys are going to be some of the best people to document your own languages. Okay, this is just a picture of the metadata sheet. Oh yes, so I kind of talked about this a little bit already, archiving. And this is the link to the Google Drive where you can upload your files. Oh, one important thing is that since we have some participants that speak the same language, you're going to end up having the same code, right? Or the file name. So like if 3 different people are working on Rehobo individually, you're going to end up having the same name. So when you upload it, you'll see, and someone already uploaded like LDTC-URH-01 -wave, and you're uploading the same thing, you're going to see this window pop up here. And just make sure you hit keep as separate file. Okay, so you don't overwrite someone else's file. Got that? This is just something that we're doing with our Google Drive. So this is the only way we can keep things separate. And then your file will be uploaded with a number. It will all automatically be numbered in the back, okay? So just make sure, again, you keep any files as separate, because then we don't want to override someone else's work. All right? All right. Okay, a workflow overview. I hope this has been good so far and understandable. Step 1, make a plan. Take a look at the archives and decide which one that you eventually want to archive your recordings with. Make a plan as to who you want to record, where you're going to record, what and when. Step 2, write down the key metadata. So when you are about to record, write down all that information. Yeah. Step 3 is make your recording. That's the fun part, I think. Making the recording is the fun part, and all this other stuff you have to do. Maybe it's not so much fun. Step 4 is move your raw data to the computer. Step 5 is rename the data using the file naming convention. And in this exercise, again, it's what I've taught you. And put that O at the end, because that's your raw data. Step 6 is back up your raw data to an external hard disk. Okay. Step 7 is start filling in the metadata sheet. It's never too early to fill in the metadata sheet. And you want to do that again before you're recording, after recording, fill in some things so that you don't miss anything. Step 8, process your data by trimming it. Use any kind of software you want to start transcribing and translating the text. And this is also when you change your file name so you know you're working on it. And then step 9, back up the process data. So at any point, you just want to keep backing up your files at any point, right? You don't want to lose all that work. So just keep backing it up. And step 10 is archive your final data with your proper file name. All right. Let's see. Relevant reading. So if anybody out there wants to know a little bit more about archiving, the history of archiving and metadata, or any overview of data management, I have thrown in some great readings into our session for Google Drive. And you can read over these articles. Some are more recent than others, but it gives some good background about everything we've talked about today, actually. And next week, we have Peter Schulke introducing morphology and syntax, giving you the basics of analyzing the structure of words and sentences. So that's it for my session, but let's see, do we have any questions? I hope everything was understandable. I wasn't talking too fast. And let's see. Pardon? Okay, looks like some things are answered. Let's see. Yeah, so this was pretty fun. Facebook Live, I've never done it before. I don't know if I'll do it again though. We have a few, oh, I'm scrolling. We have a few minutes for any questions. Oh, we have a answer for this. It is vertical bar. That might have been the most pressing question of this session. So we did have a question that was answered. Is it this one? How do we manage the transcripts and subtitles for the recordings and their translations? Oh, yes. Leah has answered that about a cool software that we use called Elon. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Circle of Indigenous Peoples. Thank you very much. Okay, that is great. Thank you. Is it Adi? Adi Hassan. Thank you very much. Definitely download this PowerPoint, read over it, and really I encourage you all to try to make those recordings and upload them and practice filling in the metadata, practice changing the file names. It's definitely a skill that you'll need if you want to do language documentation. And it's about creating habits, I think, and being organized. You know, some people are more organized than others, and you just have to keep doing it to really get it right. And again, your recordings are your assets, and you have to treat them very well. Okay, great. I think no one has any questions, so I hope you all understood what happened, and I was very clear about everything. So thank you so much. I think we can end it maybe a little bit early today. But if you have any questions in the future, just put it on our feed. We'll be checking it, and then we'll be checking, you know, the metadata and the Google Drive every once in a while to see if anybody's uploaded anything. And lastly, yeah, if you want your video on YouTube, just put it in, give it a title on the metadata sheet, and then we will throw it up, and that would be really cool. Okay, great. Thanks, guys. It was nice meeting you all. Thank you very much. Bye. Have a good day or sleep.